And I am so grateful for all of the pre-work that I did, all the inner child work, all of the rehearsing, all of the nervous system regulation led to me having this really peaceful, easeful experience on stage where there was so much room for my own enjoyment. It just, I don't know, felt like flying. It was amazing.
Your dreams will always require your healing, and you need to know that in order to move forward. If you feel stuck in your creativity, your art, your business, or your life, then it's essential to understand that you are being asked to heal what's in the way of you creating what you dream about. This podcast is all about the relationship between your emotional health and your creativity. I'm Courtney Lancaster, and this is the Heal Create podcast.
Hey everyone, so glad you're here. Hey, have we ever talked about the song that starts this podcast? I maybe mentioned it in the episode that I did, like the very first episode maybe, which was actually a year ago. I think we just reached our 1-year anniversary like last week. So I just thought I would say a little something about it in case you didn't know, because I was just listening to it today, and it really is such a good song. Gable Price, you probably are aware, just because the people that kind of find me are all sort of connected to this world. And Gable and I went to a ministry school in Reading together, and that's how we met. And he happens to be an insanely talented singer-songwriter. So his band, Gable Price and Friends, is the band that does this song at the beginning of the podcast called 50 Milligrams. And the part that I picked was a line that he sings tentatively at first, maybe I'll be fine, and then powerfully. And I was listening to this song when he put it out. Actually, that's not true. We were sitting at the bar in my house in Reading in my kitchen and eating Lucky Charms. And he showed me this song before it was out. And I loved this song, but I was listening to it and I was driving down 5 on a road trip somewhere. And this maybe I'll be fine song was what inspired me to do this podcast. I don't know. It was just like the catalyst for this inspired moment of like, I should do a podcast for creatives about emotionally sustainable creativity and teach them basically all of the things that I wish that I had known a lot earlier when it came to creativity and my own music and art and all of the things that would have made it so much easier to pursue had I had learned. Obviously, I'm grateful because that road of really pursuing creativity unsustainably led me here, of course. But I decided that I wanted to give out as much information as I was learning about how to do this in a way that's really supportive and good for your health and your family and your nervous system. As performance and the pursuit of art are often opposed to those succeeding. So here we are. Just thought I would say a little bit about that. Honestly, there are a few creatives that I got connected to in Reading that just genuinely blow my mind. I cannot believe how much talent is or was, or maybe still is, attracted to Bethel Church, which is the church that I went to. And it makes sense because a bunch of church kids found the passionate, powerful sounds of Bethel music like circa, 2014 to they're still going, but there was a real heightened time period where a lot of creatives and artists and musicians found their way to Bethel before the pandemic. And that was me. That was when I was there. And it was just incredible to meet so many people, and Gable Price is one of them. So pay attention to, he's just skyrocketed and has done so well, but pay attention to his music, and just his lyrics are so brilliant for a kid his age. It's just so inspiring to see. That kind of leads me to what I want to talk to you guys about today, and that is nervous system friendly performance. Emotionally sustainable stage presence. What else could I say? Healthy artistic expression. Wow, those are all really great podcast titles. But this is what I want to talk about today because I had my first ever set last Saturday, my first ever show that I did with my original songs. I also did a cover. We did 6 songs, and it was so incredible for me. It was such a rewarding experience. I mean, it was honestly so amazing. And I wanted to talk to you guys about a few things that I learned having done that, and then also give you guys some tips for how to prepare yourself and prepare your nervous system leading up to any kind of big expression where you're going to be seen. Maybe it's releasing a blog post, maybe it's doing an art show, maybe it's performing on stage, maybe it's releasing a song, maybe it's launching a course, whatever it is that whatever your particular creative pursuit is, there are so many things you can do to prepare your nervous system ahead and tend to yourself afterwards that make the process so much easier because your brain has evidence that you're safe because of the last time that you did it and you did these things. So that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. And I'll just say a little bit of my own personal background with performance. I've sung for a really long time, since I was, 14 maybe, in the church choir. And at 15, I started leading worship on stage, where, side note, I met my husband, and have been doing that ever since. And I've also done a lot of big stage performances that were not in church. And yeah, but for the most part, it was a lot of church singing at varying sizes of church, from mega churches all the way down to tiny churches. And there's a lot to be said about like what worship is and, the spiritual perspective of what we're actually doing. But that's not actually what I'm here to talk about today. That's a different podcast. What I want to talk to you about today is the actual technical, practical tips that I did not do in the past that I did this time that made such a huge difference for me and are making a huge difference for me. So I had gotten to a point in my early 30s where I was getting some really cool opportunities to sing on huge stages with people much more well-known than I. And I cannot tell you the white knuckling that I would do just to get through these performances. I even did some big performances back in my hometown in Palm Springs. And I would get so sick to my stomach, nervous, so incredibly nervous. I would never be able to eat leading up to these performances. I would be like shaking. I would be so terrified. I would forget everything. I would just be constantly worrying. And why did that happen? Why does that happen to any of us? Except that our nervous system is reading these performances as a threat. And I didn't even know that there was another option for how to train my body to respond to these kinds of performances. I just thought this is what it was, or maybe just this is what it was for me. And by the time I was 30 and I was going through a lot of postpartum anxiety, and some of you guys know my story, a lot in my 30s, I would be beside myself leading up to some of these opportunities. And when you're singing for church, it's technically not even about you, which I could try and tell myself 1,000 times, and it didn't make a difference because the nervous system is a show not tell system. And so it didn't matter that it was about God. It didn't matter that people weren't really looking at me. It didn't matter to my nervous system. The system in my body that every human body has that is trying to keep me safe at all times. If your subconscious believes that these things are dangerous for whatever reason, maybe it was unsafe to be seen, in your history, maybe you're afraid of being judged, maybe there's so many reasons why it could be an actual threat, even if we're trying to talk ourselves out of it being a real survival threat, your nervous system doesn't know the difference. And a terror or a fear of being seen because you might be judged is a survival threat. Because if you go back thousands and thousands of years, being judged meant you were out of the tribe. And if you're alone and not in the tribe, you're not protected by resources and other people. So your nervous system doesn't know that we really have come a long way and that There really is so much connection and so enough resources, and we are in a different time. It's what's imagined, though, in your brain that makes the difference and triggers your nervous system. So that leads me to this kind of performance. So this kind of performance I've thought a lot about. I've sang a song here and there over the last few years for like opening up for different people. I've sang my own songs for small groups of people. And it was all pretty tolerable, but it wasn't like 6 of my own songs with a full band in front of, however many. So I thought a lot about how I wanted to do this. And these are some of the things that I learned / implemented leading up to this performance. So I am a notorious rehearsal hater. I think that I have this like dysfunctional desire, I have in the past, like this sort of subconscious dysfunctional thrill of like not rehearsing and just doing it on the fly. And really the other half of rehearsal hating had to do with like, I just didn't even want to think about the performance until the very last minute. This is obviously terrible advice. This is not anything I would recommend. It was just how I survived performing. And let's remember too, if you've done my course, then you know that this is true. The things that light you up the most can also be the things that terrify you the most. So it wasn't like anybody was forcing me to do these performances. It was just that the idea of it always sounded incredible and so much fun. And like I knew this was my purpose and what I'm here to do. And then I would get close to it and I would freak out. So this time I knew that not only would rehearsing help me to be over, like I wanted to be so over prepared I could like sing this set in my sleep. And I did wake up a lot of nights being like going through all the lyrics. But it also helped me to face ahead of time some of the nervousness and fears that I had. Because when you rehearse, you're going through it in your mind, and your mind doesn't know what's real or what's imagined. So when you're imagining being on stage, going through the different songs, saying the things that you want to say ahead of the songs, singing each lyric, directing the band, doing whatever. If you're imagining that ahead of time, then you're really getting your body used to how it's going to feel to be in that position and to be on stage and all of the things. So I went over my set like 150 times. I typed out all the words. I would listen to the songs on repeat in my car. I would read the lyrics through while I was listening to the songs. I would stand in front of a mirror and imagine what like I was going to say. I was so rehearsed. And I did notice a lot of like dysregulation coming up in just my rehearsing, my private rehearsing, which was so ideal because then I could do the work to come to the aid of those parts of me that were activated and to do the sort of bookending. Sarah Baldwin talks about bookending that's necessary to teach your nervous system that it's okay that it's stretching a little bit and that we're going to comfort it after. So bookending is just resourcing yourself before and after something uncomfortable. And that means maybe before you do something uncomfortable, you watch something funny, you call a friend, you take a bath, you bake something, you go for a walk, you do some different exercises, whatever. And then you do the hard thing. And then afterwards, you also do some resourcing. So you do, again, watch something funny, take a bath, bake something, go for a walk, call a friend, whatever. So I was able to do that so many times leading up, like in the few weeks leading up to the rehearsal, that by the time the actual performance came, it was so in my cells that I didn't have to think about the things that I didn't realize I'm always thinking about on stage. Like, do I know the words? Are the words in front of me? Does the band know where I'm going? Do I know where the band's going? Like, do we have the same vision? Are we connected? Are the people engaged in the crowd? Like, what do I even want to say in front of, like, all of these things that I didn't even realize I pretty much just make on the fly, which no freaking wonder performing is so dysregulating for me in the past. But this time it was a completely different experience. And I am so grateful for all of the pre-work that I did, all the inner child work, all of the rehearsing, all of the nervous system regulation led to me having this really peaceful, easeful experience on stage where there was so much room for my own enjoyment. It just, I don't know, felt like flying. It was amazing. And that brings me to the next thing that I learned. I myself, and I think so many other people, have talked about how lyrics, like memorizing lyrics, this is specifically for singer-songwriters, musicians that, are performing songs, how lyrics are so hard for them, how they can't memorize. I remember I used to watch American Idol, and they would have this part of the audition where they would really emphasize not forgetting the words. Do you guys remember that? They would talk about how, if you're going to be on live TV, you can't forget the words then. So don't forget the words now. If you forget the words, you're out. And I just remember even watching that, I would just be so nervous for them and just thinking like, ugh, I would never be able to do that. And sure enough, especially being a worship leader, you guys, I got to a point where if I didn't have the words to Happy Birthday in front of me, I would forget that song, because being a worship leader, the words are always in front of you. And, which makes more sense. You can't necessarily memorize 6 new songs every single week. I mean, there are probably stories of churches that make you do that, but most of the time you can't expect your volunteer, singers to do that. So the words are always in front of you. So I would always think, gosh, if I ever had to just like memorize the words for something, I would die. I would never be able to do that. And that is not true. This is another subconscious belief that I really worked with a lot. Even practicing what it would feel like to use the affirmation, I memorize lyrics easily and effortlessly. I don't forget lyrics on stage. So using those affirmations and just like imagining how it would feel for that to be true really, really helped me. Now, the thing about affirmations, the reason why I don't talk about affirmations very often is because your trauma will eat affirmations for breakfast. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme, but what that means is that there are a lot of people trying to spiritually bypass their process by just trying to squeeze their eyes shut and just say these affirmations about how good their life is. And that is not at all helpful and will actually kind of make you feel like you're going crazy, because there's no dealing with the emotions that have caused the adverse beliefs in the first place. So I have been doing for years now the work to be with the younger parts of me. And I just had always said I'm bad at memorizing lyrics. And I just kind of decided, what if that's actually not true? What if I actually get scared on stage or in a setting without words, and I forget the story that I'm telling through the song, but my brain is neuroplastic, so is yours, and can learn new things all the time and can be good at things that you maybe haven't been good at in the past. And what if I actually could memorize lyrics really easily and effortlessly? So I began to practice how that would feel in my brain for that to be true. And then I obviously went over the lyrics again and again. And I went over the lyrics without the words in front of me that so many times, and really focused on the story that I'm telling. Because when you're focusing on the lyrics that are in front of you, I learned, or the lyrics that aren't in front of you, that fear response is going to take over and put you in a survival state in your brain that will keep you from recalling things. So that doesn't mean that you're bad at memorizing lyrics. That means that your nervous system is activated and it's hard to regulate and feel relaxed enough to remember the story you're telling through the song. And that was what I focused on, doing a lot of prep work ahead of time to memorize lyrics and then focusing on the story that I was telling in the song. Okay. The last thing I'll mention is actual practical nervous system regulation. This is something that is so important. Understanding your nervous system changes everything. You guys already know that I believe that. You hopefully are already curious about your own nervous system and how it affects the way that you experience absolutely everything. Maybe fewer of you know how to actually regulate your nervous system. And just really, really quick summary, what that looks like is recognizing anytime you feel anything less than grounded, calm, curious, clarity, all the C words, confidence, creative. Anytime you're not feeling those things, it means that your brain and body are in a state of threat detection. Some people are so used to that state that they don't, that's like speaking a new language to them. They're like, what do you mean? It's like telling a fish they're swimming in water. They're like, what water? They're just so used to that. But anytime that you're not in your true self, that you're not feeling peaceful, or at least connected, confident, courageous, then that's a clue that you're in a fear state. And there are things that you can do. You're never going to get around inner child work, and that's kind of just a journey everyone has to go on. But there are actual practical things that you can do to help regulate your nervous system. So there's something, my very favorite resource for this is called the NeuroFit app. And there are these little practices, they're called neural exercises, that you can do to, over time, send your body cues of safety that will help you, over time, increase your capacity. And you know what exercises to do based on what state you're in. So for example, if I was really depressed, let's say I woke up and I had no energy, I just felt really hopeless, really lethargic. Well, it wouldn't actually be effective for me to like go for a run because that wouldn't be like attuning to my own nervous system. What would be better would be to do some gentle stretching, maybe watch something that's really like light and funny, maybe talk to a, gentle and kind friend. Do something with my hands. So you're sort of like getting up gently. We don't want to override and, do a bunch of aggressive motions, but there are things that you can do, rocking back and forth, putting your hand on your chest, rocking. You can do a gentle walk around your neighborhood. You can go sit in the sunshine, and that will begin to shift your state, because depression is only your body saying, oh my gosh, there's so much threat right now. I just need to shut down in order to help you survive it. And what's crazy about that is that, again, if you look at our nervous systems, the nervous systems of humans thousands and thousands of years ago, the reason why we did that was because if there was a lion, lions don't like dead prey. So if we looked depressed and lethargic and numb on the side of the road, then a lion might pass us by because it thinks that we're dead. Or if the lion does eat us, we'll be too numb to notice. Isn't that wild? Anyways, if you are experiencing a lot of anxiety, let's say, or a lot of aggression, irritation, maybe panic, then you probably know this, but laying down and trying to relax is never going to help you calm down. I mean, how many of us have woken up in the middle of the night with anxiety and we're tossing and turning, trying to go back to sleep, and our hearts are pounding and our thoughts are racing and we can't? So that's because laying down when you have that much energy going through your body is actually not effective or helpful. So in that case, we want to do things that get the energy out of our body, which is where I was on Saturday. So I knew ahead of time that I was going to have a ton of energy going through my body. And what that means is that my body's like, hey, Courtney, just so you know, you're about to go on stage, which we are pretty sure you might die. So we're going to fill you with enough energy to run away or to fight off this threat and to like burn down the stage. That is actually technically why you're filled with anxiety before something like that, is because your body thinks that it's like a threat to your survival. So it's trying to fill you with enough energy to run away from it. That's why you have all this like nervous energy. That's what they call that. So before the concert, me and another nervous system nerd friend, Michelle Stevens, who's also an incredible singer-songwriter. She has a band called Luna on Spotify. That's amazing. Produced by Gable Price, actually, now that I think about it. Anyways, we both did some nervous system regulating exercises together. And this is where, if you don't know what to do, you could go on the NeuroFit app, say what state you're in, say what state you'd like to be in instead, and it'll give you like 6 or 7 different exercises to do. But I just knew for me, I had a ton of energy. So I did a lot of like wringing my hands, like you're flinging water off your hands. I did a lot of like, I'm having a hard time explaining it, standing on both feet and then like shifting my weight from one leg to the other really quickly and just kind of like getting that energy out. There's a grounding exercise where you put your hand in like a light fist and you kind of like you can hear me doing it, tap your chest and your arms and your legs and your stomach. And that helps your brain helps your body to feel grounded. And then I would pretend to wash my hands, which brings your body to the present moment. And all of these things were really helpful and effective to get a lot of that energy out. It's another thing that I can see went wrong back in the day was I just didn't have the resources to get that energy out of my body. So that by the time I went on stage, I was so panicked that I would like try and get through the song. I would just completely override my own nervous system in order to get on stage. So those were all the things that really helped me to have a different experience this time. Now, something interesting that always happens anytime I release a song, anytime I talk about creating or pursuing your art, anytime I perform in any capacity, someone will inevitably come up to me. This is like a guaranteed. This happens every single time. This time, it was maybe like 6 or 7 people that came up to me and said something like, I really want to do what you're doing, but I don't know what it is. I just can't. And so, of course, I want to say, well, I have a course for that because I do. And it is a quite helpful course for exactly people in that position. And I get it. I understand. Like there was, some dumb feminine ad about, it said, make them wonder how you got here. That's what it said. And it popped up on social media somewhere. And it was this girl and she's looking at the camera and it was like, make them wonder how you got here. And I'm like, F that. That was me. I was the one wondering how they got there, feeling absolutely helpless and hopeless. And I had no idea how to move forward, how to move out of that stuck feeling that everybody comes up to me telling me that they experience. And it's really wonderful to be able to inspire people now to create, because that's just a byproduct of you doing your thing. It was not always like that for me. It was a good 20 years of me really pursuing all of this in a really unsustainable way. It really was. And so I want to tell people every single step of the way, every step of how to move out of that stuckness, because the stuckness is not a sign that you're not meant to do this. It's not a sign that there's something wrong with you. It's not a sign that you're not talented enough or that you don't have the resources or the connections. Nothing like that. Everything is figure outable. We just have to train our nervous system, bring compassion to all of the scared parts of us, and do some very science-backed, practical things to help ourselves come into a place of safety to where we can move forward. And so I just want to offer that to you. If that's you, what's really important is to remember that the only thing that you need is a vision of where you want to go and the next right step and the next step forward. And it could be a really small step, but that's how I got where I'm at. And I'm not even anywhere, big yet. Big is relative. I'm not anywhere that anyone would say is, of notoriety. I am just sharing my process because I know what it's like to be in the dark. And in that way, I have come a long way, an incredibly long way, a very, very long way. And I'm so proud of myself and also so grateful to all of the people that supported me to get here. And that's what I want to do for you. So I just want to encourage you that wonderful experiences like the one that I had on Saturday are waiting for you as well. Really expressed, aligned, incredible experiences of you doing what you know you're here to do. Because when I was on stage on Saturday night, there were so many moments when I just looked around and was like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. And I got off stage and just immediately began dreaming for bigger. And that's where we're headed. So thank you for joining me on the journey as I continue to move forward. And hopefully you are inspired to take your next step forward. Maybe it's just learning about your nervous system and how to help yourself go step by step into some of these dreams that you have. So that is all I have for you guys today. I wish you such deep, integrated healing and such wonderfully expansive creativity. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Heal Create podcast. If you have enjoyed this podcast at all, we would love if you would subscribe, rate it, send it to your friends. That would really help us get this message out, this message of empowering people towards emotionally sustainable creativity. Also, we have a PDF for you. So there's an exercise that I created called inspiration mirroring. And basically, it is for those that are looking to get acquainted with their authentic, truest self, based on the idea that whatever inspires you embodies your potential. And so if you want to get started on that journey today of really understanding who you are at your core, the person that you hope you are, then you can go to the link in my bio on Instagram or go to my website and download that PDF. I think that's all. Have a beautiful day.